Actually, I'm going to go get the safer, but I can still hear you.
Okay. Let's just do a quick recap. Rabbi Nachman is speaking about the characteristics of the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, and the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. And he explains that the difference, at the core, the most important difference between them is that the Yetzer Tov is like the moon. He calls them both the moon, but one of them is the moon of the holiness, and one of them is the moon of the klipa, of the tumah, of the impurities. So the moon of holiness is always shining. Why does the moon of holiness always have light? Because the moon of holiness accepts completely the light of the sun, and so therefore it's filled with the light of the sun, and that represents the Yetzer Tov. The Yetzer Tov is the moon of holiness that is always filled with the light of the sun. It's always shining with the light of the sun. And the light of the sun, obviously, we said, is the Chokhmah. The Chokhmah, the divine intelligence, the inner intelligence, the spirit, the divine consciousness. Whereas the moon of the Klipa, the moon of the Sitra Achra, the moon of the other side, which is also Esav, does not want any of this wisdom. It does not want any of this, the will of Hashem, the Torah. All it wants is an expression of its own physical, own lowly self, an expression of its animalistic desires and lusts. And therefore, because it rejects the light of the Chokhmah, the light of the sun, the moon of the Klipa doesn't have any light. It's absolutely dark. This is like what the Chachamim teach us in the Gemara, that the righteous, even when they pass away, when they're not alive in this physical world, they are still considered alive. They're still living. Whereas the evil, the wicked, the Rishaim, even in this world, when it seems like they're alive, they're really not considered living. And this is like the moon of the other side, where it doesn't have any of the light of the Chokhmah. It rejects it. And when it rejects it, thinking that it has everything that it needs and it's self-sufficient, then it is left without any of that light. It's left without any of that life. Okay, so let's continue. 1 second, I'm just going to get some water. Sorry. Okay. Through this, all of the prayers and requests are accepted. The main reason why in any time person's request or prayer is not accepted, it's because the words lack the grace, and because the words lack grace, so they don't enter the heart of the one who is being asked. As if that person does not have any place in his heart for these words to enter. A person, in order for the words to enter his heart, to actually affect a change and to actually change maybe the decision of the person, so the words need to have grace. Otherwise, there's no room in the person's heart for those words to enter. there's no room for those words to be heard. You can be speaking, it's like there's a difference between hearing someone and listening to someone. So that difference is made when the words have grace. When the words have grace, so a person shifts from just hearing the person, just hearing the person's request, to actually listening to the person's request. And then they actually enter the person's heart and they make a change. And then the person accepts that. So the person accepts the request, the prayer is accepted, and that prayer is whatever is requested is given to the person. So that needs chen, that needs grace. אבל על ידי התורה, through the study of Torah, שעל ידי זה נתחברים ונתקשרים הנון והחט כנ"ל ונעשה כן, through the Torah study, the letter chet and the letter nun are unified. The letter chet, as we said, represents the chokhmah, represents the sun. The letter nun represents the moon, represents the malchut. So at that point, when the chet and the nun are unified through the Torah study, כמו מי שמדבר דבריכם, שנכנסים הדברים בלב המתבקש, just like a person who speaks words of grace, that those words are accepted, they're heard, they're listened to, they're desirable, those words, because they have grace. שנכנסים הדברים בלב המתבקש, דהיינו זה שמבקשים ממנו. Those words are accepted in the heart of the one who they are requested from. So that happens through the grace of these words. That's what makes these words desirable. Through the Torah study, the words of a person receive this grace. They're infused with this grace. They become graceful. And the grace is, as we said, the word chen, which is the chet and the nun, the combination of the chokhmah and the malchut. So now, after Rabbi Nachman explained to us the aspect of chet and nun, he's going to explain to us the aspect of tav, the letter tav. What does the letter tav represent? So says Rebbe Nachman, על ידי שנתחברו ונתקשרו החטא והנון ונעשה בחינת חן, through the combination of the unification of the chet and the nun, and that gives us the word chen, which is grace. על ידי זה נעשה בחינת tav. Once the chet and the nun are unified, so then you have another letter, another aspect that comes about, that is born, that is revealed, and that's the aspect of the letter tav. The letter tav is, the word tav means an engraving, something that's engraved, something that's inscribed. That's what the letter tav means, an inscription.
Can you explain though where this, where does this come from? I'm not understanding how the chet and the nun being joined together, a tav is made. I'm not seeing that.
So the chet and the nun could be the male, and the nun could be the female. The chet is the male, the mashpia, the one giving over the shefa, one giving over the light, and the nun is the receiving aspect. The nun, the malchut, receives from the chet, and they're unified and perfectly, in a perfect unification. The moon is elevated to the status of the sun, like it says in the pasuk that we brought about the time of redemption, the final redemption. The moon will be elevated to the level of the sun. They will, when they're unified, they have to become equal. They have to become on the same level. So when that unification happens, so obviously there's fruits that come, that are born from that unification. The fruits that are born from that unification, says Rabbi Nachman, is the letter tav. The letter tav is an inscription. It's an inscription that it's the effect of that grace. What's the effect of that grace? It's the product of that grace. The product of the grace, or the product of the unification, is always the children. And so the children, the product of that grace is this letter Tav. What is that? So Rebbe Nachman is going to tell us right now that is the effect that these words of grace, these graceful words, have on the heart of the one that you're asking from. So when
hold on, let me call time out for a second though. So I guess I get all of that. Right? I understand what each thing represents and how one is birthed from the other, but where do I understand that? How do I understand that Tav comes into the picture at all without Rabbi Nachman just telling me that? Like, what's the source for that?
Rabbi Nachman is telling us that. That's the Torah.
I mean, thus far throughout the Likutey Moharan, and also in what I've been studying in other areas of the Sefer, when he brings in something like that, you can see where it comes from. You can see in the word, this letter's coming from here, or from this pasuk. That's how I'm drawing down this information. That's where I'm getting.
Well, the letter Tav. You want to know why the letter Tav? Why specifically that letter from all of the alphabet? So he says that the letter Tav, the word. Well, remember by the letter Chet. The reason why he told us Chet represents the Chokhmah. Do you remember what was the reason that he brought? He said because the letter Chet, the word Chet, so even though the letter Chet is called the letter Chet, just like any other letter has its own name, but certain names of letters, the name that is given to the letter it sounds like a certain word. So the letter Chet sounds like the word Chiyut, and Chiyut means vitality, life energy. And therefore, since the Chokhmah is the life energy, as the pasuk Rabbi Nachman brought says, "V'chokhmah techayeh b'aliyah," that the Chokhmah gives life to those who own who own it. So in the same way, the letter Tav also has a meaning to it. The word Tav sounds like a certain pasuk that says, "V'hitvita Tav." There's a pasuk that says in Yechezkel, V'hitvita Tav. It means to inscribe a mark. So you see that Tav is like an inscription, a mark that's inscribed. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so the inscription, the mark that is inscribed on the heart, and that's the effect, that's the product of the unification of these words of grace, that's the letter Tav. So he says, Shehu Lashon Chakika Rishima. This word, Tav, is a word that has a connotation of a marking, an etching. Through this chen, there's an inscription, a mark that is made in the heart of the one that is petitioned, and to receive, to accept that request. It's through that grace that is infused in the words are words of grace, that those words are accepted. Comes out from here, what comes out from this is that this grace inscribed a place. It marked a place in the heart of the one that you requested from. It made a mark, it made a place, it made an inscription, it had an influence on that heart to receive my request. And like that, my request will enter the heart, will be received and accepted in this person's heart, and he will accept what I'm saying. So this mark, this etching, is the aspect of the letter Tav. And Rabbi Nachman brings a proof from the pasuk, "V'zeu divrei chachamim benachat nishmaim." The words of the wise are accepted peacefully or pleasantly or gently. That's what the word benachat means. So we see that this word benachat is the word that describes how the word, it describes how the words of the wise are accepted. So Rebbe Nachman is going to teach us that it doesn't just mean that their words are accepted pleasantly. This word that means that they're what they're asking for, what they're saying is accepted pleasantly, also is made up from the 3 letters that contain the secret of why the words of the wise are accepted. And the reason why the words of the wise are accepted is because they have grace. Their words are words of chet and nun, which is the chachma with the nun, that the aspect of accepting the chachma, and that causes the tav. It causes an inscription, an etching, an influence in the heart to accept those words. And then, through those 3 aspects, the words are accepted pleasantly. Nachat daika, it uses the word nachat specifically to allude to these 3 aspects that we just spoke about. Hainu bechinat chet hanal ve'atav hanal, the aspect of the chen, which is the grace, and the tav. That through the combination of the chet and the nun together with the tav, you have the letter nachat. Ve'az nishma'im devarav, and through that his words are accepted, his words are heard, listened to, and the request is accepted. What's interesting though is that the word that describes this combination of these 3 aspects is not in the regular order that Rebbe Nachman taught it to us. Then it would be chanat, right? It would be chen, tav. But instead we have nachat. And maybe we might say, to explain that, to understand that, is because Rebbe Nachman said that the light of the chet is too great to receive it on its own. The only way to receive the light of the chet is through the aspect of nun, which is malchut. Through the malchut, you're able to receive that light. Let me just do something for the light here for a second. That's better, I think. So based on that rule, we can understand why the nun is before the chet, because you can't receive the chet unless you have the nun. Once you have the nun, so what is contained without the nun, right, deeper within that nun is the chet. So you have the nun, that's the first, that's accepting the yoke of heaven, accepting the will of Hashem. That's the Yetzer Tov, accepting Hashem's will, complete acceptance. And then within that, you have the chet, and then you have this tav that comes about, that makes the mark and it influences the heart to receive the request. Why is this so beautiful? This is so beautiful, this secret, what I just pointed out, the order of the letters, because the Gemara teaches us, and this is a secret that's brought down in many holy Sfarim, that the Torah is so vast, there's so great, there's so much information in the Torah. And how can a person ever hope to contain so much information of the Holy Torah in his heart? And the answer that is given to us by our Chachamim is that through the fear of Hashem, through the fear of heaven, which is basically emunah, it's a level of believing in the word of Hashem, believing in Hashem's greatness, in the Torah, in the importance of our neshama, believing in the importance of the mitzvot. That belief is the fear of Hashem, and when that belief is so great that it causes awe in my heart, it brings me to actually have different feeling, a different emotion in respect to the Torah, to the mitzvah, to Hashem. It's not just like any other thing. It's actually something that has a tremendous importance, a tremendous significance, right? If a person If a person, for example, if a person on Shabbat walked into a room and he almost turned on the light and he remembers and he's afraid, he has like that fear that, oh my gosh, I almost turned on the light. Why? Because he's afraid of transgressing, doing something against what Hashem wants, right? So when a person has that fear of doing something against what Hashem wants, the mitzvot are not just any other thing. It's something extremely important. And praying to Hashem is something extremely important. A person has a fear and awe of missing the prayer with the minyan, of missing the time of the prayer. That awe, that fear of God that comes from a real belief, a real trust in the word of Hashem, in the Torah, and the mitzvot, that Chachamim teach us is a vessel for all of the Torah to be contained in the person's heart. So that's why the Torah teaches us that a person should always prioritize and start off with developing a deep level of fear of Hashem, awe of Hashem, respect for Hashem, and that will allow you to receive the Torah and to contain the Torah. Great amounts of information that is in the Torah can be contained in the heart of one person just because of that yira, that fear, that honor, that respect of Hashem becomes a vessel for the heart to be elevated to a point where it can contain within it so much information. So much, it's almost like it takes it from a dimension of limitation to a level of limitlessness, where it can contain beyond the physical. Tremendous amounts. That's the fear of Hashem. So this is exactly what we just saw in this word, nachat. The nun is first, and the nun is the fear of Hashem. And when you have that fear of Hashem, that accepting the will of Hashem, which is the malchut, then you can contain tremendous amount of chokhmah. At the beginning, it's impossible. The light of the chokhmah is so great, it's impossible to receive it. But once you have that, you start off with the fear of Hashem, then you can contain tremendous amount of chokhmah. So that's why it's very important, the order of these letters here. In this place, it makes a lot of sense, the order of these letters. Why specifically Nun, Chet, and then Natav? And then a person's words are accepted. Their request is accepted. So now says Rebbe Nachman, based on this, therefore Yaakov, who is this aspect of the sun, the aspect of the Chachma, the aspect of that divine consciousness, divine intelligence, therefore he merited, we see that he merited this aspect of Chen. He merited this divine grace. Where do we see that? It says in the Pasuk, Kemoshe Katuv, we had this in last week's Parsha. Yaakov says to his brother Esav, Ki chanani elokim. The continuation of the Pasuk, Ki chanani elokim v'chi yesh li kol. Hashem has granted me grace, and therefore I have everything. V'alken berachet hashvatim b'chen. And since Yaakov has this grace, as he says that Hashem granted me grace, so he was able to also bless his children with this grace. And we see that when it says, Kemoshe Katuv, Hayiladim Asher Chanan, the children with whom Hashem has graced your servant. So we see that now he's speaking about his children in connection to his children. He's saying that Hashem has graced me with these children. So he's saying, in effect, that these children have the grace of that Hashem blessed me with. They're by my children. Binyamin no haya az. Binyamin was not at that point. Binyamin was not there when Yaakov met Esav, and Yaakov and all of his children bowed down to Esav. And that's why actually it says that Mordechai, that was one of the things that Mordechai said when Haman commanded everyone to bow down to him at the time of Haman and Mordechai and Esther and Achashverosh. Mordechai did not. He refused to bow down to him. Mordechai said because his ancestor was Binyamin, and Binyamin did not bow down to Esav, so Mordechai believed that he had the power to refuse to bow down to Haman. Haman was a descendant of Esav. And so Mordechai, being a descendant of Binyamin, who was not there at the time and did not bow down to Esav, believed that he had the power to refuse to bow down. He didn't need to, since his ancestor Binyamin did not bow down to Esav. There's a rule that many of the Rishonim explaining the Torah teach us. Many times they return to this rule, and the rule is Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim. What their forefathers have done is a siman. It's a sign for what will come to pass in the lives of their descendants. So the Ramban, especially throughout all of Sefer Bereshit, almost every different point in what the Torah teaches us about our forefathers, he says, oh, and this was a sign for what will come to pass by their descendants in whatever certain story that we're going to have in Shemot and later on in the exiles and the time of the Beit HaMikdash, whatever it is, he shows us the correlation between what happened in the lives of our forefathers and what happened in our lives. So here too, Mordechai was a descendant of Binyamin. He believed that he had the power to refuse to bow down to Haman because he saw, with his deeper understanding, that the actions of the forefathers, the actions of Yaakov and the family bowing down to Esav, kind of like it would give also, it would have an effect that the descendants should also, during exile, have to subjugate themselves to Esav, to the descendants of Esav. But since Binyamin was not there, so this was not found in Mordechai. Okay, and so he actually had a power to refuse to bow down to Haman. Anyways, but the point here is that Binyamin was not there at that time when Yaakov met Esav, and when Yaakov said and blessed his children, he was speaking about his children to Esav, and he was saying that God granted me these children with his grace, right? So that just by speaking about his children in that way, about Hashem blessing him with his blessing him with these children with his grace, that itself, Rabbi Nachman is explaining, was a blessing to his children with this grace, was this chen. But since Binyamin was not there, so he was not blessed with this chen. And therefore Yosef had to bless his brother Binyamin with his grace, with his chen. So now the question is, why specifically did Yosef have to be the one to give over this blessing of chen to Binyamin? Why Yosef? Why, first of all, why not Yaakov at another time? Why not the other brothers? Why specifically Yosef? So Rabbi Nachman says, Ki Yosef haya kalul biyoter min b'chinat Yaakov, kemo shekatuv ele toledot Yaakov Yosef. This is read at, okay, this is the beginning of this expression. Just one more line. Right at the beginning of this expression. These are the descendants of Yaakov, the children of Yaakov, and the pasuk says Yosef, and we learn from here ki hu haya ikar toldotav, that the essence of Yaakov was in Yosef, was given over to Yosef. Ki Yaakov Yosef ki chada chashive. Yaakov and Yosef are considered like one. So since Yaakov was the most, from all of the children, he was the most included from the aspect of Yaakov, so therefore he was able to give over this chen, this grace, which is the aspect of Yaakov. He was the most fitting one to give it over to his brother Binyamin. We'll continue next week. Shabbat shalom and have a wonderful day.